Kiev launches drone attack on Russian presidential residence. Moscow to revise negotiating position as of now. Kiev carried out a drone attack overnight on December 29th, targeting the Russian president's state residence in Novgorod region, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. Russian air defenses destroyed 91 UAVs, and there were no casualties or damage. Shout out to those Russian air defense teams, because they could have just saved us from World War III. Lavrov stated that Russia has already determined the targets and timing of a retaliatory strike. Moscow will not withdraw from the negotiation process, but Russia's negotiation position will be revised in light of what Lavrov described as the Kiev regime's final shift toward a policy of state terrorism. Big fucking mistake from Zelensky from Ukraine. I was going to come out and do a story about the Russian military advances because they are absolutely massive. As I've been saying, the Russian military has been gaining about, 500 to 1,000 square kilometers per month over the past, since October. They've really turned up the notch, and they've been moving with lightning speed all across the Donbass in ways we haven't seen since the start of the conflict. And this month, again, we had the official reports come out, and these are like verifiable, right? Because you can see pro-Ukraine and anti-Ukraine people drawing the maps, and they roughly line up day by day. The Ukraine maps are usually like 2-3 days late on reporting losses for the Ukrainian military. But that's all there are right now. There are not losses for the Russians. The Russians are advancing in every direction. Russia this month has garnered a total of 700 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory thus far. So, again, we're still roughly in line with the same numbers that we've been seeing the Russians hit over the past several months. I was going to come out and talk about this. I was going to talk about some of the key cities that we've seen Russia move into over the past several weeks. But something else happened that caught my attention, and I think the attention of everyone else, which was, maybe you didn't see this yet because it happened right before we went live. Ukraine launched a drone strike, a drone attack on the residence, the home of President Putin, and they carried out this attack with a grand total of 91 drones. This was Putin's residence in the Novgorod region. Now, I don't have any confirmation as to where Putin was or was not on this day, but I will say it is absolutely insane that Zelensky would do something like this. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it and what this will mean moving forward. But first, Kiev launches drone attack on Russian presidential residence. Moscow to revise negotiating position as of now. Kiev carried out a drone attack overnight on December 29th, targeting the Russian president's state residence in Novgorod region, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. Russian air defenses destroyed 91 UAVs, and there were no casualties or damage. Shout out to those Russian air defense teams, because they could have just saved us from World War III. Lavrov stated that Russia has already determined the targets and timing of a retaliatory strike. Moscow will not withdraw from the negotiation process, but Russia's negotiation position will be revised in light of what Lavrov described as the Kiev regime's final shift toward a policy of state terrorism. Big fucking mistake from Zelensky from Ukraine. And it needs to be said that if Russia wanted to take out Zelensky or any of his henchmen at any point over the last going on now 4 years, they could have done that any second. You do understand that Russia has missiles now, like the Budapest missile, which they can launch in the air. Russia can launch a missile in the air, nuclear-capable missile, launch it in the air, and it's a smart missile, can evade any air defense system in the world. And because it has this new technology, a small nuclear engine that runs in the missile, it can stay in the air for months on end, fly around wherever it needs to fly, and then hit a target at a moment's notice. Russia has published videos of themselves, their drones, high above in the air to the point where you'd never even know there was a drone flying above you, monitoring Zelensky's motorcade, monitoring Zelensky's positions, monitoring his home. They could have done this at any point in time, but they didn't, okay? they did not take Zelensky's life. But now, in the state of extreme desperation that Zelensky finds himself in, he is trying to drag all of us, the good citizens of this world, who are not fighting brother wars, right? Not sending 1 million men to their death in Ukraine, Ukrainian men to their death. We are not the ones doing that. We are not the ones who are making hundreds of billions of dollars off of selling our countrymen to their death in a suicide mission. But he is trying to drag us into a World War III type situation now by launching 91 drones at the residence of Putin. And if you don't believe me, answer me this. If the Russian military is advancing on every single front right now, in Zaporozhye, towards Zaporozhye city, towards Dnipro, towards Huliopole, they're already in the city there. They're moving all across Donetsk, right? They've taken Kupiansk. They're in Pokrovsk. They're forming a semi-encirclement around Kramatorsk and Slavyansk salient at the moment. In the north, they're moving. They've taken the capital city of the Kharkov region. Okay, they're heading towards Kherson. Why on earth would you be using but a single drone for something as insane as this that achieves nothing militarily for the Ukrainian army, who is losing kilometer after kilometer of territory each and every day? It's because they're terrorists. Because they're terrorists. Why? Why would you do this? Why are you trying to drag us into this conflict? Even Trump understands this is insane. Trump told Putin in a phone call after he was made aware of the attack, "Thank God we did not give Zelensky Tomahawk missiles." Tomahawk missiles, by the way, are nuclear-capable missiles. He said, thank God we didn't give them to him. A few months ago, Trump was considering giving Zelensky long-range nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles. Top Putin aide Yuri Ushakov says Trump was shocked and outraged over the attack on Russian president's residence. Kremlin said as well, Trump said in a conversation with Putin that he could not even have imagined such insane actions as a drone attack on the Russian president's state residence. The drone attack on Putin's state residence took place virtually immediately after talks between the United States and Ukraine in Mar-a-Lago. Kiev used long-range drones to carry out the attack. Now, Zelensky's coming out and he says Russia's preparing strikes on Ukrainian government buildings in Kiev. He made the statement in response to Lavrov's remarks about an attack on Putin's residence and Russia preparing a retaliatory strike. At the same time, Zelensky denies that there was any direct attack on Putin's residence. So Zelensky's saying, no, we didn't do that. But do you all remember when Zelensky took credit for launching a drone at the Kremlin and it blew up right above the Kremlin? Not like near Kremlin wall. You know, it blew up like they have the little flag on top of the main Kremlin building and they launched a drone there and it blew up. It was shot down right above the Kremlin wall. Do we remember when between 2014 and 2022, the 8 years in that period, the Ukrainians slaughtered 15,000 civilians in the Donbass? Have we forgotten about when the Ukrainians were involved in the U.S. Biden-led effort to blow up the main pipeline that supplied Germany with cheap Russian gas that provided Germany the ability to produce automobiles and produce a very strong manufacturing sector for cheap rates? Do we remember when they blew that up? Right? And they blamed it all on who's Zaluzhny, but we all know the Ukrainians, the U.S., they were all involved in the operation. Like, have we forgotten when they blew up the Kerch Bridge to Crimea? When they claimed, oh, we really care about the Crimean people. And then the main infrastructure routes that was built to Crimea by the Russians, and there's a bunch of Crimeans using that bridge. What did they do? They blew it up, and they killed innocent people doing that. Have we forgotten about that? Have we forgotten about all of the innocent Russian journalists and like TV presenters, people that have nothing to do with the conflict in Ukraine that Zelensky has ordered the assassinations of and taken credit for it? Young women like Daria Dugina, murdering her and car bombings. Are we really going to sit here and act like, oh yeah, they totally didn't do that? Of course they did that. Of course they did that, right? They've been doing that. You've been doing that the entire time, right? Now, the only thing I'll say about this story is that, well, you know, the official narrative is like, oh, well, Trump has the new national security doctrine, and it says that he's not concerned with wars across the world. He's concerned with the Americas. And Trump is meeting with Putin in Alaska, so he really cares about a peace. You guys, I'm just going to put this out there. If that's so true, why is he not forcing Zelensky to sign the deal? Why is he not forcing elections in Ukraine? Why is he not forcing Zelensky out of power if he's so committed to peace? If that's true, why did Trump just approve $800 million more dollars for Ukraine in the NDAA this year, the National Defense Authorization Act? Why? Hundreds of millions of dollars. Tens of thousands of U.S. troops remain in Europe under the Trump administration. What could they be there for? Obviously, as a posture against Russia. Okay? Talk of peace is all about forcing Russia into a Minsk 3.0 style freeze. The U.S. will then use to rearm Ukraine and start this all over, but the next time they'll include NATO. They'll include Moldova. They'll include Romania. They'll include the Baltic states. They'll include Finland. They'll include all of them, right? And people keep citing this national security strategy that was released this year under the Trump administration as proof. But if you read the national security strategy, or if you read Brian Berletic's breakdown of it in the Beijing Review, which you should all read, it's an incredible read. Not only does it talk about in this entire thing, he talks about how the national security strategy still is all about escalation against China, escalation against Iran, as well as Russia. But the idea in which they are approaching escalation against these countries has changed. Okay? Here's how it's changed. In regards to Russia, the paper claims the U.S. seeks to support allies in Europe, preserving the freedom and security of Europe, both of which the U.S. itself upended through the overthrow of Ukraine in 2014 and many other coups, as we all know, Romania, Moldova being the two most recent examples. The arming of Ukraine under the first Trump administration, yeah, Trump was the one that started that in a very big way, sending those javelins to Ukraine left and right. He was just handing out javelins left and right to Ukraine in his first administration. And the continued proxy war the U.S. has waged against Russia and Ukraine ever since. While the paper states a desire to avoid America's forever wars fought across the Middle East, it seeks to do so by preventing an adversarial power from dominating the region. This means eliminating nations like Iran, or at least eliminating their power, their sovereign power, or you could say the sovereign power of Russia, the sovereign power of China, as nations who are committed to defending themselves in a very clear way. All right. Also, this is the main part in which the U.S. is changing their approach. The goal has not changed. The goal is still weaken, balkanize Russia, attack Russia, weaken their economy, weaken their morale, weaken their military, weaken their economy, weaken everything about Russia. But the strategy has changed. It explains the U.S. will organize a burden-sharing network with our government as a convener and supporter. This approach ensures that burdens are shared and that all such efforts benefit from broader legitimacy. The model will be targeted partnerships that use economic tools to align incentives, share burdens with like-minded allies, and insist on reforms that anchor long-term stability. So, like what Trump has done, right? Try to get Russia to agree to a bullshit deal that will allow the burden-sharing network to rearm itself. Who's the burden-sharing network? NATO, the EU, Ukraine, all these countries. And Trump just got them to sign an increase in their GDP per year commitment to NATO military buildup. The burden-sharing network is NATO. He wants Europe to contribute more. This strategic clarity will allow the U.S. to counter hostile and subversive influences efficiently while avoiding the overextension and diffuse focus that undermine past efforts. Thus, far from abandoning its allies, the U.S. is instead stitching them into a burden-sharing network it can use against designated adversaries, including Russia and especially China. Wringing from this network additional resources to pursue U.S. foreign policy objectives, avoiding U.S. overextension, all at the expense of the network's members. It is a strategy the Trump administration already proposed using Europe to take over greater costs and risk amid the ongoing war in Ukraine against Russia, freeing up U.S. resources toward containing China in the Asia Pacific. Nothing ever changes, folks. Literally nothing ever changes. It is the same old goal. Yeah, maybe it's true that Trump didn't expect Zelensky to go and do drone strikes. Maybe he did know. Maybe people in the CIA, maybe people in the Pentagon knew. Maybe Trump, I don't know. If I was Trump right now, though, it's real simple. It's real simple. You tell Zelensky, wow, you just tried to drone strike Putin's home. That is a huge red line as I'm trying to establish a peace deal with Putin. You just fucked the whole deal. Obviously, they did that because now Russia gets asked for way more of what they want from the U.S., from the Ukrainians, because this insanity just happened and effectively an assassination attempt. So I'd tell Zelensky, if I was Trump, I'd say either you are going to sign the deal that Putin gives you tomorrow, that we and Putin give you tomorrow, or you're getting arrested tomorrow and we're going to create an interim government and then hold elections, and you're going to be put in prison for corruption. Really simple. Really simple. This is not like some complex. Everyone says, oh, well, Ukraine, it's taking so long because it's a complex issue. No, Trump actually could have solved this in 24 hours. It's actually not that complex. The U.S. has no cards on the table. Ukraine has negative cards on the table at their hand to negotiate. Listen to Russia. Avoid more death, avoid escalation, avoid more land loss, because the negotiating terms for the Ukrainians are only going to get worse. So if you care about Ukraine, as they say they do, but we all know that the U.S. doesn't, okay, they care about BlackRock, cares about making money off of Ukraine. But, hypothetically, maybe Trump deep down cares about this. If you care about it, tell Zelensky you're getting arrested on corruption tomorrow. All of his allies, all of his henchmen, all of his right-hand men, key policy advisors, foreign secretary, whatever it is, they've all been arrested on corruption by NABU, which is a U.S.-controlled agency. It's like an anti-corruption agency controlled by the FBI in Ukraine. Either you tell them you're getting arrested tomorrow, maybe we'll allow you to flee to Israel if you want, or you sign the deal today. Simple as that, no other options. But Trump is a pussy. Trump is weak. Trump is stupid. Trump probably has a lot of friends that are making a lot of money off of this. That's why he just signed off $800 million more to Ukraine. It's all a show. It's all theatrics. It's so stupid. I don't understand how people are still saying, well, like, Trump is really No, he's not. No, he's not. This all could have been solved. But that's where we are now. 91 drones at Putin's home in Novgorod. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.